The year leading up to the divorce, we had moved from living in England to here in South Africa, where we have been since. They got divorced in July of 2014, but in the period leading up to that, we had to attend lots of meetings with people at courts. One of these meetings was when we had to meet at the family advocate's office. This was to work out which parent I would live with after they got divorced. And this was one of the better experiences for me, because there was always someone at the family advocate's office to tell me what was happening. They told me what would be happening that day, who I would be speaking to, and roughly how long it would take, so I knew what was happening. My parents went and met with the advocate, and I was interviewed by the social worker, and I was 8 years old at the time. I think the meeting with the family advocate was a difficult one because my parents were not in speaking terms, and they still are not in speaking terms. But recently, when one of the speakers here today said that whenever he does mediation with couples that are at war with each other, he places a photo of the child on the table and just stares at the couple, stares at the photo, not the couple, stares at the photo while the couple argues. When I heard that, I felt like I was the child he was talking about, and looking back, I felt quite safe talking to a complete stranger. Even though my mom went with a heavy heart, I remember her saying she felt better after coming out the meeting with the family advocate. My parents got divorced soon after the family advocate's report arrived, and for about a year after the divorce, my dad was paying maintenance. He stopped paying maintenance after my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer and ended up landing in the hospital. That was when things got really bad, as my mom had lots of medical bills and she was temporarily boarded from work. She contacted the maintenance officer at the magistrate's court, and 2 people came to our home to speak with her. It all seemed fine and that things would work out. And by this, I mean that my dad would probably start paying maintenance and make life a bit easier for us. Now that I'm older, I can see the difference between the different courts we were at over the years. My mom went to the maintenance court more than 20 times, and there was always some sort of excuse as to why they had not done anything about our matter. This meant that she had to take off work every time. And when I read a charge sheet recently, I noticed the number of times that there was a warrant of arrest issued and then cancelled within the same day. The warrant was issued, then cancelled, because my dad did not appear at court at the scheduled time, but would often appear later the same day. Sometimes the folders would go missing, and as young as I was at the time, I knew that the courts were not very efficient, and that every time my mum went there, she would come back crying from frustration and disappointment. I then started to dread her going to court, as I knew that she would be wasting her time and come back sad. On another level, I always looked forward to seeing my mom after she came from court, because I hoped that the maintenance would be sorted and that we could live more comfortably. Through all of this, she was on chemo, but also had a second job to help pay bills. By that time, I was 9 or 10, but I knew that the courts were not looking after us, and I feared for my mom's health. A big problem was that the investigations were often not done properly, so it appeared that my dad was not by the means to pay any money. Eventually, the magistrate ruled that my dad was not by the means to pay anything. Since 2015, I was still in primary school. To this day, where I am in year 12 and a prefect at my school, he has not bought me something as inexpensive as a pencil. My mom still works 2 jobs so that we can survive every month, and what this has taught me through the 10 years of going through court systems is that courts are scared of standing with the victims of domestic violence. I say this because financial abuse falls under the greater category of domestic abuse. I am one child that is still being failed by the justice system, and there are tens of thousands of other children being failed equally. My wish is to speak to a room full of magistrates and maintenance court employees, so that I can tell them what it feels like to be hung out to dry by their decisions. I also would like to share with them what it feels like when your parent comes home from court saying that absolutely nothing happened and we are still in the same position. I would also like to tell them what it feels like to have one parent go to court for 10 years only to be told that she has to take care of me on her own. As I mentioned earlier, I was 8 years old when this court journey started, and by Christmas this year, I will have a driver's license. I would not wish the horror of a maintenance journey on anybody, and I can only hope that somewhere somebody decides to do some training with the decision makers, because children suffer emotionally as well as financially when poor decisions are made. Thank you.